Morning, everyone. We'll be doing kind of an impromptu kind of sketch session. So let's do it in my kitchen. I got this table. I'm gonna flip it in a second. Got this table with all my shit on it. It's super basic. You don't need an elaborate setup. It just needs to be, a table, some paper, and some pens. Super simple. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I'm using this Pentel pen. This is just a few dollars on Amazon, super cheap. I really am enjoying this red on black kind of thing, making a mess. It does look like blood. So that is, I think, part of the appealing part of it. And then you mix the black with it, and then doing some smearing, you'll get the grays and the red and blacks mixed together, which you'll get a deeper black than just black alone. So you're kind of getting all this great stuff from just using the two, the red and the black, and of course having the white there. They're three very powerful contrasts. There's a lot of symbology in all of that. Goes throughout history, but again, it's just for the striking element. So what I just usually do, and going back to these are just start off very abstractly, just scribbling, right? Scribbling with the red, not really trying to define anything, and just kind of letting them come out. They're telling me what they wanted to be versus me purposefully doing things, which is why they're abstract, right? You can maybe see familiar things in there. You can see figures or insects. Sorry if the birds are too loud. It's like they're living in this house. I think it adds to the tropical element. Anyways, yeah, insects, animals. I'm combining all things here. Just things that I like. So that's a good tip on artist style. How do you find your style? Your style is going to come about from the things you like. So I like insects, I like animals, I like combining them, I like red and black, right? It's all here, it's all showing up here. The things I like are showing up in the work. So along those lines, if I just I'll do kind of like what I did on that last thing, and I feel I'm running out of ink here. But it gives that kind of dry brush feel. So what I'm doing here is just kind of expressing. I'm not trying to draw anything. I'm just moving shit around and making marks. And I'm being mindful now to not make the same kind of marks. You see this one is a little bit more round, right? This one has more of a curve to it. What if over here, I oppose that curve and go this way? So I'm being mindful past, the first scribble to not make any of the previous scribbles the same. So now we have 3 different ones here. And, I'll just try to fit, as many on a page as possible. Sorry for the construction outside. There's birds, there's construction, it's just life. It's just life happening. I'm gonna stop trying to control it. I could shut the windows, but it's nice getting the breeze in here. So again, it's just movement. It's really, that's what it all is about at this point. What's cool about these pens, and like I said, I'm running out of ink, is that, it contains the ink. You could squeeze this, right? So I could squeeze it and get more. It's not doing the splatter thing. Well, it kind of is. So that's another technique, right? It's really just about getting messy. You can just use your finger and start smearing shit around. See, now it's coming out a little bit more opaque, a little less translucent than up here, which I kind of like that brush work. So, hey, you get what you get. That's the point of this. You're just letting go of expectation. it's a good approach to a lot of things in life. So you can see now I have this whole page filled up. Specifically this paper, what I'm using here is great because it's not going to warp. It's the Bristle Canson Vellum grain. So it's pretty thick, right? So it's able to withstand this. You know, it's a heavy paper. You know, versus this is just regular copy paper, and you can see that it really doesn't matter, right? It almost looks more interesting. This is all beat up because it's with the theme of the drawing. But if you want to do things that are going to be preserved a bit better, you know, you're just going to want to invest in better paper. I mean, this is cheaper and it kind of shows, and this is a bit, you know, and this is not expensive. It's just more expensive than that, and you know, it's more durable. So now what I can do is now go into these things, and then I kind of do what I just kind of like to do anyway, which is basically create movement in the form of lines. So if any of you guys have seen my 10 pillars of drawing, you know, line is kind of the thing that holds it all together. So if we were to analyze this according to the 10 pillars, you know, a lot of these are shape based. So I started with shape and then I went back with line. The pillars don't have to go in order at all. It's just, those are just the things that are holding up the art as a whole, right? So what I like to do is introduce chaos in the form of shape. And then with line, I introduce a sense of order. And so that's kind of the gist of what I like to do without even figuring out, oh, this is going to be a person or an animal. And again, these are just patterns found in nature, you know. Again, so I do one line here, right? And then the other line, well, it's either going to come after it or before it, right? So I'm creating this sense of movement. The trick in any good design, and this is, I'm designing these lines out, is that you just want variation. So if I'm going to do a line here, and again, I'm going to vary this guy here versus this one. So if I want, you know, if I do a curve like that, and again, that's control. That is just me doing this so much that, you know, I'm pivoting my hand against the paper, so I'm controlling. Like, find leverage, find whatever is going to work for you. So, you know, here I want to now be mindful, and I want a line that's going to kind of mimic this line here, but not be the same. I just want it to be a little smaller, or it can be bigger, but you can see that it's a little smaller. And then I do another one. And so you could see in this particular technique, it's kind of like sound waves. You know, the line is kind of radiating, the shape is radiating, there's a shimmering kind of quality. A lot of this ties into my love for, you know, obviously nature, but Android Jones and H.R. Giger, two of my huge inspirations, and Van Gogh. Van Gogh painted motion. He painted the wind, right? Like, how do you express wind in a painting? Well, he did it. If you look at his paintings, they kind of shimmer. So this is kind of doing that, right? There's a vibrational quality to it. And so it's serving two purposes. It's pleasing to look at aesthetically, at least for me. It's kind of a practice in, you can see here, a practice in control. This is a, you know, self-control, right? It's a good analogy for life. And I forgot the last thing I was going to say because I got so caught up in this. You kind of want to just, you know, really get in there and control, but also be loose. That is just something that takes time. And that is something that, you know, everyone has to cultivate on their own. It's like learning to walk. Ultimately, someone can help you to walk, but ultimately, you got to do the walking. So, there's no better day than today to start So you can see now there's some kind of order within the chaos, and the order is by way of repetition. Now some may see repetition as kind of boring. I see it as incredibly elegant. This also ties into Art Nouveau, which is something I learned through studying H.R. Giger, because he was really into Art Nouveau. Again, whatever you're interested in is going to come out in your work. I don't want you guys to copy what I'm doing. I want you guys to find what you like, and if this style is what you like, then I'd say study Art Nouveau, study H.R. Giger, study Android Jones, study Van Gogh. And then what you do is you start to kind of, emulate certain techniques, certain ideas, until they become second nature. And so another great thing about this whole process is it's very meditative. So if you meditate, this is a form of meditation. Put some music on. You shut out the noise from outside. You shut out the lawnmower that you hear right now, which I don't mind, because that's just life. It's nice to know that there's things happening outside, so you don't have to worry about, FOMO, right? I'm not too worried that the guy is gardening out there. So what I like to do now, so there's a lot of curves, right? There's a lot of curves and chaos. What I like to do particularly in my work is add the sense of like a cutoff, right? And that's just to form a straight line. So going back to the first pillar line. Again, this is just the style that I have been cultivating for a few years now. But you could see that now I'm just adding some straight lines. And again, this is adding just variation of elements. I have curves. I add in a sense of a straight line. I mean, I can even go bold and do, I'm not afraid of abstract art. I can do squares. And of course, I love circles. So, and especially moons, right? Which is really just, it's a circle that is cut into, an eclipse of sorts. And again, that takes practice. No one can draw a perfect circle. This is not perfect. Again, it can come from, you can see I'm kind of mimicking, I'm drawing the circle before I draw it, kind of moving my hand around, and that way I can get momentum when I do something like that. So this circle's a bit better than that because I had the momentum. So I'll do it again right here. So I'm mimicking the motion of a circle before I do it. I'm also thinking of the size. Again, remember, in good design, I'm going to break it down for you guys right now. It's very simple, and it's going to sound kind of patronizing and too easy. Don't make anything the same size as anything else. I had that exact phrase told to me when I was having a hard time on a job. I was about to get fired, and because my design skills were not that good. I was good at, environments, and, I thought I was good at characters, but I think my character design was under scrutiny. And my friend who was also working on the job, he said those exact words, and he kind of said it over the phone, and I could hear him shaking his head because he was trying to convey like what was wrong with my work, and there was something wrong. And he said, I think he said, dude. He probably said, dude. He said, dude, don't make anything the same size as anything else. And when I first heard that, I was kind of offended. I'm like, what the fuck's that supposed to mean? Like, okay, I understood the concept of variation, but obviously I wasn't putting it to practice. But then over the years, it didn't kick in right away. I was kind of, I think I ultimately quit that job, and then, to save me from getting fired or whatever. But it wasn't until years later that I started realizing how important that phrase was. What he said was very important. Do not make anything the same size as anything else. And then I started applying it to everything else. I started applying, okay, do not make, so I have a line right here, right? Do not make this line the same size as anything else. And I'm treating each one of these as kind of like its own little separate illustration, but you can go further and treat the whole picture, the picture plane, as it were, as even these are different studies. I'm trying to treat each one as a separate piece of art, because why repeat the same thing over? So you do that on a smaller scale, right, for each individual one, but then you do it as a whole when you're dealing with, bigger illustrations. So that's kind of what I did with these, was making sure that each one was unique. So it's a balance, right? It's a balance of not making things the same size as anything else. And again, that goes for line weight, it goes for color, it goes for value, it goes for anything in the image. It's not just a line thing or a shape thing. It's a unified thing, but that's something that always stuck with me, and I repeat it to myself every single time I draw or paint or work on an illustration, and it's become this kind of this background repeating kind of song in the back of my head, like, don't make anything the same size as anything else. And again, line, weight, color, value. Of course, I'm only dealing with red. I haven't even gotten into the blacks yet. This is interesting. It's kind of having like a ship kind of quality. And again, it's, the line is kind of telling me where it wants to go. Like there's a feeling here, this initial swoosh right here. It's like it wants to go up there, it wants to connect. And then I decide, okay, do I want to connect that? You don't have to answer every line's calling. You're in control. But, I wanted to maybe oppose that. And then here I'm having this dilemma of like, okay, these two lines are the same size, right? And sometimes that is okay. That there are going to be times when you break the rules, and that's totally fine. Knowing the rules so you can break them is a massive, advantage in your art making or in just general life stuff, right? But you gotta learn the rules first. Okay. So these are just endless kind of fun and exploration. And there's no real goal. If you guys saw one of my Instagram posts or Facebook posts on doing art just for art. Yes, I'm going to show this video to you guys, and I hope you guys get things from it. But what I want you guys to get is that, the joy of art on its own should be sufficient enough to do the art. And if it's not, I understand we have to make money, right? We have to eat and we have to pay rent, so why not do it with our art? Why not? That's going to be an individual thing. It's going to be, okay, how willing are you to network, to push for work, to essentially, I hate to say the word corrupt the work, because anything that involves payment and other input from other people is just by kind of definition, by default, going to be, influenced, right? We don't have to use the word corrupt, but in some situations, corrupt is the right word. And that is going to tarnish your love for art, potentially, right? I remember working on a lot of jobs, even recently, where it's like, yeah, they were very high profile jobs and very big projects, and just feeling completely caged into what other people wanted, who I felt, because of my ego, were not as, creatively inclined as I like to think I am. So there was a battle, and of course that battle, you need to respect who's paying you, right? Unless you are, so high above all that, you can be a diva, but we don't want to be divas anyway. That's a bunch of bullshit, right? We want to stay humble. We want to stay true to our craft. And we want to love our craft. So going back to work and finding work, I heard Bobby Chu, great artist, great leader in the art education movement. He has a school called Schoolism online. And I remember him years ago saying that, he would rather have a shitty job that he has to work during the day and be excited to be able to go home and do his personal art at the end of the day, than vice versa, than to have an art job which you fucking hate and then you cannot wait to get out of there so that you can go home and do, and the thought of doing more art after doing that is kind of repulsive. So that always stuck with me, because I tell that to a lot of aspiring artists and students, a lot of people I work with, because it happened to me. I started getting these on paper very high profile, high paying jobs, and it was just sucking the creative force out of me, so that by the end of the day I just I was like, fuck that, I don't want to do any more art. I want to go home and do other things, and that's fine too. You don't always have to do art. So again, it's all about, what does art mean to you? Is it just strictly a means of expression and meditation? Or do you want to use it for work, which is going to take on a whole new relationship to you? I think there's a sacredness to art, and your own style, that we don't want that defiled. We want it to stay pure, right? But then we think, well, why can't we support ourselves and do this art thing at the same time? And it's totally possible. It's not unheard of. But again, it goes back to, okay, do you want your art to potentially be, corrupted, the process, right? You want anything to get in the way and make you feel differently about art, how you feel about art. Sorry, there's a dump truck outside. He's doing his thing. Hey, maybe that guy is an artist and he can't wait to get home after he's finished dumping all those trucks, so that he can draw, so that he can do this. So I'm very grateful and humbled and honored, and I'm glad to whoever's watching this. Hopefully you get some things out of it, and at the end of the day, it's just a lot of practice. What may look like effortlessness is just repetition times 10,000. I've been doing weird shapes like these for like 15 years. So you would hope that they would be at least moderately okay. And I haven't even started with the black yet because I'm just exhausting the red to some degree, and I'll go back in, but you can see, look at these variations in shapes. Big circle, this kind of slant right here that kind of goes up. But starting with the chaos is totally fine, even if you're going to do clean line work, because I can just get a piece of tracing paper or vellum or whatever and then put it over this. I could take a picture of this and scan it and then paint it in Photoshop and having that same effect. So it's just really nice to be able to just do this traditionally first. And that's something else I'm just promoting a lot with Infinite Artist, is just, you know, grasping the fundamentals again. You know, just drawing with basic tools. Okay. I don't like any of this. I can't erase, so I'm just going in here and I just have this dirty ass napkin, which I just licked. And I did that. And it's liberating because I can't undo that. And that's the problem with a lot of digital artists, is getting stuck in that mindset. You know, I'm messing up the paper here. It's like if I get it too wet. But that is the beauty of it. It's working forward. And that's something that a lot of digital artists have trouble with, because we can undo. And I'm speaking myself as a digital artist as well. I use the undo every time, a lot. Hundreds of times during it. Thousands of times during an image, because you second guess yourself. But here in traditional, especially with marker and ink, yeah, I can go over with white ink, but it's still going to kind of show through. Is that it just forces you to be bold, and making bold decisions is important for life in general, as I'm sure many of you know. Always second guessing yourself is not really a fun way to live, because then you never get anything done. You never progress. So I think I'm good with the red for now. These are not finished at all, you know, and what's great is I can go back to this at another time. I can start on a whole other one, and that would be fine. There is no goal for any one of these except for them to be unique pieces of art, kind of like along the lines of these. And then these can be further developed. I can now even go into these guys with even smaller pens. These are specifically, these are called Airship. Very inexpensive, just pens, but it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can get, you know, Prismacolors or regular pens. I love, you know, just basic, just office pens. I mean, I just love this because you just give me this and a piece of just cheap copy paper, and I'll be happy. And so should you. Okay, guys, so hopefully that shed some light on this particular process, and just, you know, in general, you know, art and stuff. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care.